So welcome everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. My name is Donna Ostry. I'm the Director of Marketing for the Wilf Campus for Senior Living. We're very happy to present to you today our author series featuring Sharona Hoffman, who is here to discuss her book, Aging with a Plan, How a Little Thought Today Can Vastly Improve Your Tomorrow. Such an important topic. But before we start our program today, I'd like to take a couple of minutes and just say a few words, I promise to be brief, about the Wilf campus for anyone who's not familiar with our campus. So the Wilf Campus for Senior Living, we are a nonprofit senior community. We've been around for over 45 years. We're a warm, inviting community. We reflect Jewish values and traditions, but we welcome people of all faiths. We provide the highest level of care and service that's based on respect and compassion. And our goal always is to provide a meaningful life for our residents and our clients through all of our agencies. You may have heard about some of our agencies, but as you can see, our campus offers a vast variety of services and programs to the senior community. So I'll touch on each of those very briefly. So I'll start with Sign Assisted Living, where our incredible staff combines a warm and inviting atmosphere with personalized and attentive care. We offer a home-like environment. We have social, fitness, educational activities to keep our residents happy and engaged. We have things like a beauty parlor, housekeeping for our residents. Our nurses are on premises 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, of course, providing compassionate and professional care. We also offer respite or short-term stays, where if you want to try us out without the commitment, or if you need a little help after maybe a hospital stay or rehab, you could come for a 2 to 4 week period and really enjoy all of our amenities without the long-term commitment. It's really a great way to try us out. And in addition, we recently announced the expansion of our memory care program. We already operate a secure memory care unit, which offers 24-hour supervision by specially trained staff. We've had that for a while, but now we've added a transitional care neighborhood. And that's for individuals who are exhibiting mild or early signs of memory loss or dementia, but they're not yet quite ready to move into a full memory care program. So that program would be for them. And in addition, we've also recently announced a partnership with Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, which is going to bring us individualized medical oversight and expertise for our transitional care neighborhood residents and our memory care residents. And I urge you to visit our website to find out more information about that. And of course, you can also contact me. We're very excited about this new partnership, and I'm happy to provide more information about that. So in addition to Stein, we have Willen Senior Residence. That's our independent living building. It is a HUD building, so you do have to meet financial eligibility requirements to live there. But it offers spacious apartments. We have a social worker on site for our residents. We also have a beauty parlor. We have a convenience store that's run entirely by our residents. And of course, housekeeping, activities, and much, much more. Just let people in. Okay, and then Stein Hospice provides compassionate end-of-life care. We focus on comfort and dignity of the patient, as well as support for their family. We're available 24/7, including evenings and weekends, and we provide care wherever the patient is. So could be at home, could be at another assisted living facility, whether it's our assisted living or another assisted living, a nursing home, a hospital, really wherever the patient happens to be. And then Wilf at Home, that's our home care agency. We provide care wherever the patient is, wherever they call home. We provide peace of mind and an individualized plan of care to meet our patients' needs. We offer skilled nursing, certified home health aides, non-medical companionship, and we also offer pastoral and spiritual care. And with the assistance of our transportation service, Wilf Transport, we're also able to provide transportation when that's needed. So Wilf Transport, it offers, it's another one of our agencies, and we offer low cost transportation services to seniors and individuals with special needs. We take people to medical appointments, dialysis, shopping trips, restaurants, grocery stores, wherever they need to get. And all of our vehicles are ADA compliant and wheelchair accessible. So finally, I know you're all here for the program. So if you have any questions about any of our agencies or programs, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is on the screen, and I will also share it in the chat. A few programming notes before we start. The Wilf campus relies on the generosity of our donors to bring you these types of programs. And our author series is sponsored by the Foundation of the Wilf campus and is dedicated by Cheryl and Michael Kaufman in memory of Michael's younger brother, Alexander Joseph Kaufman. So we are thrilled to have Sharona Hoffman with us today to discuss her book, Aging with a Plan. If you haven't done so yet, you can purchase a signed copy of the book on our website. The link is on the screen, and again, I'll put it into the chat. If you have any questions, we ask that you save them to the end of the program. We will leave time for Q&A, and then at that point, you can either raise your hand and ask a question or put your questions into the chat, whatever you feel comfortable. So, Sharona, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I will turn things over to you for our program. And thank you again, everybody, for coming today.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. So I am going to discuss my book. And I thought I would start by saying a little bit about why I wrote the book, and then I'll share my screen and we'll go through some of the substance of the book. So the book actually grew out of a very difficult period in my life. During 18 months in 2013 and 2014, both of my parents died. My father was a rabbi and my mother was an Israeli pioneer. My mother-in-law died, and my husband, Andy, was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at the age of 55, all pretty much at once in 18 months. So as I went through all of that, I learned a great deal about getting older and getting sick and facing the end of life and doing a lot of caregiving. Now, I am a professor of law and bioethics at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, so I knew something about the theory and doctrine of some of the issues that I was facing, but there is nothing like personal experience to really enliven your knowledge and drive those lessons home. I also realized that as difficult as things were for our parents, they will probably be even more difficult for Andy and for me because we don't have children. We don't have anyone who's going to become a natural unpaid caregiver. So it's particularly important for us to do some planning and to put some safeguards in place. And COVID-19, of course, taught us that life is extremely unpredictable, and you may not have nearly as much time as you think to do that planning. So the book is, first of all, my own effort to deal with my anxieties and find some answers for myself. But more importantly, it's an effort to put my professional and personal experience to good use helping others. So it's meant to be a concise but comprehensive resource that is a one-stop shopping opportunity for aging and caregiving issues. It combines a lot of research. I am an academic with a lot of personal anecdotes. It's part memoir. I had a lot to work with. And it offers a whole lot of practical advice. Each chapter ends with a checklist of takeaway messages. So it's meant to be an accessible resource for everyone who is or will be aging or caregiving, and that is pretty much everyone. So let me try to share my screen now and jump into some of the substance. Okay. So first of all, what topics do I cover? So I start with money matters because the reality is that money is relevant to almost everything else, and we will talk about money in a little bit. I then have a chapter on the benefits of community living. So a lot of people want to age in place, that is, live in the home that they've had for years or even decades and not have to move. And that can be okay for people, but it's only okay if you still have opportunities for social and intellectual engagement, and if the home is safe, if there aren't stairs that you can't handle and too many opportunities to fall. And a lot of people become socially isolated because they can't drive anymore or their friends can't come and visit them. And we know that loneliness results in significant physical and mental decline. So for a lot of people, aging in place is actually not a good idea. Rather, people should consider a retirement community, such as the Wilf campus, where they will have opportunities for social and intellectual stimulation, and they'll have transportation services, and they will live in an environment with a whole lot of support and opportunity for life enrichment. Then I address how you can get help with money, medical care, home management, and other things. So I talk about growing service industries such as daily money managers, geriatric care managers, relocation experts if you are going to move, home organizers, and others. What are these services and how can you go about obtaining them? Essential legal planning. I am a law professor, so we will get more into that. Driving while elderly. This was an extremely sensitive topic in my family, and I know that it is in many other families, because if you stop driving, you do give up some autonomy and many opportunities. And so how do you go about identifying people who may not be safe drivers anymore? And how do you go about having what are going to be very challenging and emotional conversations about people's ability to drive? And how do you avoid some of the mistakes that I probably made in those discussions? Care coordination, this is about medical care, and we will talk more about that later. Long-term care, that's nursing homes, assisted living, in-home care. We heard about that at the beginning. What are these services? How do you go about figuring what the best option is for you or the people you are caring for? And finally, exit strategies, maintaining control at the end of life. So this chapter is about end-of-life decision-making. What options do you have? Again, hospice is one of them. How do you go about finding the best option for you? And they can vary by state. And how can you maintain as much control as possible at the end of life? So let's start with some facts and figures. In 2022, we had 56 million seniors, people who are 65 and older, and that was 17% of the population. It's estimated that by 2035, we will have 77 million seniors, and that will be 21% of the population. In 2020, we had 6.7 million people who were 85 and older. That's considered the very elderly. One thing that is happening is that baby boomers began turning 65 in 2011. And baby boomers are defined as people born between 1946 and 1964. And when I saw this figure, I became quite upset because I thought I was Generation X or Y or one of those cool generations. It turns out I'm the very last year of the baby boomers. So now I have to say we baby boomers. Life expectancy in the US right now is 78.18 years for males and 82.65 years for females. But these are just averages. It turns out the longer you live, the longer your life expectancy actually is. So if you're a senior already, you can add a few years to these numbers. And that is because you have survived all of the hazards of infancy and childhood and being a teenager and being a wild young adult. And so you have longer to live. Now, the not so good news is that there is a definite risk of Alzheimer's disease as you get older. We have 6.5 million Americans who are seniors who have Alzheimer's disease right now. And of course, there are other sources of dementia, Lewy body dementia, other dementias, and a lot of people get dementia before they are seniors as well. So the risk of dementia is another reason to really do your planning in advance. I also wanted to know if I was in good company, not having children, and the answer is yes. 15.4% of women between the ages of 40 and 50 had not had children as of 2018. And as I mentioned earlier, people who don't have children have even more reason to do some planning because they may not have an easy time finding people who volunteer as caregivers. So let's go ahead and talk about finances. So 33% of baby boomers have less than $25,000 in retirement savings. And 25% of adults have no retirement savings. And retirement savings are important, not just so you can go on cruises and have fancy cars, but because medical care costs a huge amount. The experts say that a couple that is now 65 years old and will live to its full life expectancy may need as much as $295,000 just for medical costs. And that is because you have co-pays and deductibles and premiums and a whole lot of services that are not paid for by Medicare and supplemental insurance, such as dental care, vision care, psychotherapy, hearing aids. Hearing aids cost thousands of dollars. I'm told that there are going to be some over-the-counter hearing aids that are going to cost just a few $100s. It will be interesting to see if those are high-quality products and if people feel that they are effective. Now, if you're also going to need long-term care, that is in addition to the $295,000, and that is extremely expensive. If you need a nursing home, I have figures here for Ohio, that's where I live. On average, a nursing home costs $98,500 per year. That's for a private room, $87,600 for a semi-private room. And I'm not sure why it's called semi-private. That means you have a roommate right there in the little room. It doesn't seem private at all. And it still costs a huge amount. Assisted living on average in Ohio, $55,600. And in-home care is $24 per hour on average. And that can really add up if you need a lot of hours of care or 24/7 care. So what can you do about these costs? Well, retirement savings are extremely important. And in fact, the experts say that if you have to choose between saving for retirement or helping children or grandchildren with college or graduate school, you should prioritize saving for retirement because students can get student loans. They can even get loan forgiveness sometimes. And there aren't similar programs for retirement. And your children and grandchildren will appreciate not having to support you financially when you retire. So keep that in mind. There's also the possibility of long-term care insurance. This is a complicated product. It's a good investment for some people. It's not a good investment for other people. The premiums are high. They argue with you a lot about whether they're going to pay. So if you're considering long-term care insurance, you really need good advice from a financial advisor who can take your circumstances into account. Another thing is reverse mortgages. Those are advertised on TV a lot. Again, it's not a no-brainer decision. You really need to have good advice about whether that's a good option. They work well for some people, but they have some pitfalls. So think about that carefully. All right, I think that's all I'm going to say about finances, and let's move on to legal documents. So we said a lot of people are not financially prepared for retirement. How are we doing with legal preparedness? And the answer is not well either. So only 46% of US adults have wills. And among seniors, that number is just 75%. And I've been surprised several times among people who I know who are highly educated, who have some serious health conditions, who are seniors, who ask me, hey, do I really actually need a will? And the answer is probably yes. Because if you don't have a will, state law will govern how your assets are distributed after your death. And state law generally says that they go to your spouse or your children or your children. But if you want to do other things with your money, let's say you want to give some of it to other loved ones or some of it to charity, to the Wilf campus, for example. You need those instructions in a will. And so to get a will, you should go to an elder law attorney who can tailor the document to your particular needs. You might talk about trusts. Trusts were very popular a while ago, but now the tax laws have changed. Some other things have changed. And so not as many people are getting trusts. There are some particular reasons to get them, but most people don't actually have trusts. One advantage of trusts is that the people who inherit or the executor of your estate do not have to go to court and go through probate, deal with a judge. But there's another way to avoid probate, and that is payment or transfer on death. I'm not sure how many people have heard of this, but that is a mechanism by which you can fill out paperwork and assign particular assets to go to particular people after your death, and then they don't have to go to probate. So your car can go to one person, your bank account can go to somebody, your house can go to somebody, your investments can go to somebody. So you just have to go to the right place, the Department of Motor Vehicles, or the deed people downtown, or the banks, or your financial advisor, and fill out the correct paperwork. It's not too cumbersome, and it's well worth the investment of time. So far we've talked about what happens to your assets after death, but you also should have a durable power of attorney for property and finances. This is a decision maker who can take over if you are no longer able to manage your own financial affairs because of dementia or because of another illness or injury that is permanently or temporarily disabling. So this person would pay your bills, write checks, make decisions about investments or charitable gifts, and really act on your behalf when it comes to all finances and property. So it should be somebody that you trust and somebody that you're willing to be open with about your financial situation, your investments, your documents, etc. And you not only need to name a decision maker, you also need an alternate, because the original person might herself have dementia or be unavailable, have moved, be out of town when the need arises. And so it is very important to have the decision maker and the alternate, and to give them the information they are going to need in order to carry out their functions. And the importance of this was demonstrated to me by something that happened to a colleague at work. Her parents were older and were aging in place in a house. The mother had dementia, so didn't really understand anything about the finances, but the father was very private, very autonomous. And when the adult children tried to talk to him about, Dad, what's going to happen if we need to help you? Can you tell us a little bit about your assets, your finances, your preferences? He got very angry and he told them it's none of their business. They're trying to get a hold of his money. He doesn't want that. Leave him alone. And so they never had a meaningful discussion. Well, one day there was a catastrophic fire in the house and everything burnt down. The computer melted, the paperwork was gone. The mother, who had dementia, escaped, but the father died of his wounds. And the children, the adult children, knew absolutely nothing about what insurance policies there were, what bank accounts, how they're going to pay for the care that their mother was now going to need. And that really compounded the tragedy of the fire and the father's death. And you want to make sure that doesn't happen to you or to your loved ones. I also say provide funeral instructions. Some people tell me, you know, I'm going to be dead. I don't care. Just let my children do whatever they want. I don't want to burden them. But that is really not a kindness, because the last thing that children want when a parent dies is to figure out how to honor them. It's a very stressful time when a parent dies. Hopefully your children are really upset that that happened. And they don't want to have to figure out what you would have wanted, what is respectful, what's not respectful. The more details you give them, the more they will appreciate it. Now, you also need another type of decision maker, and that is a durable power of attorney for healthcare. This is somebody who's going to make healthcare decisions for you if you no longer can do that for some reason. And so they will consent to treatment, or they will decline treatment if they know that you wouldn't have wanted that treatment. So you need to speak openly with this person and the alternate and tell them what your preferences are. Would you want to prolong life at all costs, or would you want to emphasize quality of life towards the end rather than length of life? Would you want aggressive treatment, ventilators, dialysis, artificial nutrition, and hydration? So these people really need to know what your preferences are, and you need to trust that they will follow your wishes, even if that's not what they would have chosen for themselves. So I have a friend who's an Orthodox Jew, and her mother is not that observant. And her mother every so often brings this up with her and says, you know, I want to make sure you're still comfortable following my wishes, even if your own religious beliefs would tell you to do otherwise. And the daughter reassures her. And that's exactly the kind of situation that you want with your decision maker. You can also have a living will that is often packaged together with the durable power of attorney, where you can specify, depending on the state, exactly what kinds of treatments you would want and not want at the end of life. But this document just relates to end of life preferences, and you really need a decision maker who can take over before the end of life, if that is necessary. You can also, if you have a history of mental health conditions, you can have separate powers of attorney for physical health and mental health. About half the states recognize a durable power of attorney for mental health. Some people are not comfortable having the same person with both. And the mental health power of attorney allows you to provide details. A lot of people have a lot of experience with treatments and medications and know exactly what they would want and not want, so you could give pretty detailed instructions to your decision maker. You should make sure your decision makers have copies. You don't want all of the documents just in a drawer at home. There can be a fire. So your decision makers should have copies. Your doctors should have copies. When you go to the hospital, you should take a copy with you, and you should make sure everybody knows the information they need to know. If you don't have money for an attorney, you can download the durable power of attorney documents and the living wills from the internet. You just need to make sure that you have the ones for the right state. Each state has its own documents. Another thing, sometimes people ask me, well, I have 3 children. I'm just going to make them all the decision makers together. That is a bad idea. That can lead to a lot of tension and chaos. It can drive the doctors crazy because one child is saying do one thing, one child is saying do another thing. It is much better to choose a decision maker that you trust, have one person, have an alternate, and then let everybody know who the decision maker is. Also, you need to update your legal documents. It's not enough to write them up, put them in a drawer, and never think about it again for 30 years, because things change and it's important to have them updated. So the advice is update them upon the 5 Ds. You update them when you turn a new decade, right? So happy birthday and go see your lawyer. Upon the death of someone important, either a decision maker or somebody you were going to leave money to. Upon divorce, you probably don't want your ex as your decision maker. Upon a new diagnosis that might change your trajectory, or upon decline, either your own decline or a decision maker's decline. This book actually that we're talking about is a fully revised 2nd edition. The original book came out in 2015. And so when I published the 2nd edition in 2022, I told my husband, we better practice what I preach. And we went to a lawyer to update all our documents, and it was surprising how much changed and how many modifications we needed to make. So let's move on to our last topic, which is, let's see, okay, medical care. So I think most of us, if not all of us, hope that we will go strong and feel good till the end, and then die in our sleep or drop dead without knowing what happened. And so I sent a research assistant to try to figure out how often that actually occurs. And she came back with bad news. So according to studies, only 7 to 15% of people die what is considered a sudden death. That is a death that is not explained by anything in the medical record. No cancer, no heart failure, nothing like that. So unfortunately, most of us have a period of decline. So they say 70% of seniors have 2 or more chronic conditions. And what we do about that is we run to specialists, right? The cardiologist, the endocrinologist, the neurologist. Seniors see an average of 4 specialists a year. And the problem is that that can lead to fragmented care rather than coordinated care. So each specialist can aggressively treat the condition that they're in charge of, and nobody is looking at the big picture to see if everything is coordinated and if each approach really makes sense together and is in your best interest. And I saw the problem with this firsthand, something that happened with my mother. About 2 years before she died, she went seemingly overnight from being a cognitively intact person to being someone who appeared to be at the end stages of Alzheimer's. She all of a sudden stopped communicating, stopped wanting to eat, slept most of the day, and when she was awake, she sat with a blank stare in front of the television. And we could not believe it and could not figure out what happened. And so my sisters and I did research and talked to people, and it turned out that what happened was a drug-drug interaction. She had been on 12 drugs. What an 82-year-old who weighs 105 pounds is doing on 12 drugs, I don't know. But some doctor added a 13th, and it was a very unlucky 13. It robbed her of all of her cognitive capacities. And so we started arguing with the doctors, and slowly but surely they removed medications, and we got her down to 5 instead of 13. And miraculously, she regained her cognitive capacities. But there were 2 months from April to June of 2011 that she completely could not remember. We told her stories about what happened, and she said she didn't believe us. It couldn't be her. She absolutely had zero memory of those months. And I have since read that this happens with some frequency. There are other accounts of this. So you want to make sure this doesn't happen to you or your loved ones. So what can you do? Well, a geriatrician is a fantastic idea, but we don't have many of them. There are 7,000 board-certified geriatricians to treat 56 million seniors in this country, and only about half of them practice full-time. Why? Because it's not a really appealing field for young medical students. They want to be dermatologists and anesthesiologists and have an easy life and make a lot of money. Geriatrics is hard. You have patients with very complicated conditions that often don't get better, and it doesn't pay nearly as much as other specialties. So they say, we are going to need 27,000 new geriatricians by 2025. That will not happen. If you know medical students, encourage them to go into this field. There's a great need, but they'll probably tell you they're going to do something else. So what's another option? A primary care physician. Primary care physicians can do that oversight and coordination, but we have a terrible shortage of primary care physicians as well, and internists and family practitioners. Those fields don't pay as well and are more challenging than other fields. And so the average appointment that you have with your primary care physician is 15 minutes, if you're lucky, and half the time they're fiddling with the computer. So they really don't have time to carefully study all of your medications and listen about everything that is going on with you and do that oversight, sadly. And so it's critically important that you become a member of your own medical team, an active member. So do some research, talk to other patients with your conditions. Read about it. You can read things on the internet. There's tons of garbage on the internet, but there are also excellent sources. I've gotten wonderful information from the websites of the Cleveland Clinic, the Mayo Clinic, government agencies such as the CDC, the National Institutes of Health. There are reliable sources. Now, you shouldn't panic. You shouldn't decide you're dying of a brain tumor because of something you read on the internet, but you should use it to go to your appointments prepared, and be prepared to ask questions and insist that you get good answers. And if you think you need a follow-up appointment, you should ask for one. You should be your own advocate. And the importance of asking questions was demonstrated to me by an experience that I had with my husband, who has Parkinson's disease. So we've seen a lot of neurologists, and one of the neurologists we saw years ago offered a new drug. Parkinson's disease patients often have cocktails of drugs. So he was saying, why don't you try this new drug? And I listened, and I noticed that he wasn't saying anything about side effects. And so I said, what about side effects? And he said, don't worry, most people tolerate this beautifully. But I'm a law professor, and I heard most, and that set an alarm bell for me. And so I said, well, what about those that don't? And he hemmed and hawed, and he said, finally, well, about 20% find that it causes confusion and it clouds their mind. Well, Andy is still working. He's a computer science professor. And so the last thing we needed is for his mind to get clouded. So we said, no, thank you. But we wouldn't have known that if I hadn't asked the question. So actually, the next time Andy had to go by himself, I was teaching or couldn't make it. And he came home and I said, how was your appointment today? And he said, it was actually really good. The doctor was in a wonderful mood. And I said, really? Why? And he said, because you weren't there to bug him. But nonetheless, it is important to ask those questions, and it's important to involve trusted advocates in your care. Don't go to important appointments by yourself. Don't go for procedures by yourself. Don't go to the hospital by yourself. You're probably going to be anxious. You may not ask all the questions. You may not insist on answers. You may not remember everything the doctor said. Your advocate can help you remember, take notes, ask questions, and talk to you afterwards about what happened during the encounter. And people say, I don't want to burden my friends and family. It's not fun to go to the doctor with someone. Well, it may not be, but you will have opportunities to reciprocate. If someone does you a favor, they will feel comfortable asking you for a favor when they need it. And again, I've had personal experience with this. Long ago, when I was 29, I became very ill. I talk about it in the book. And I needed emergency surgery, and my mother had to come from Michigan, where she lived, down to Houston, where I was single and living on my own. And she had to take care of me for a few weeks. And it was disruptive to her, but she was my mother. She was happy to do it. Well, 5 months later, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I don't even think we had a discussion. I think we had an announcement where she said, I am not going to be treated in East Lansing, Michigan. I want to be treated in Houston, where there is the wonderful MD Anderson Cancer Center. And so she moved into my one-bedroom apartment with me for what turned out to be 9 months. She had surgery and chemo and radiation. And while I was full of trepidation, it actually turned out to be a wonderful period for us. We became closer than we had ever been and built a lot of memories, and she did great. She lived for another 18 years cancer-free. So I had a very immediate opportunity to reciprocate, but most people have opportunities to reciprocate as well. And finally, have those conversations with loved ones regarding your financial matters, regarding your end-of-life treatment preferences, regarding how you want to be cared for and how they want to be cared for. A few months ago, I gave a talk here in Cleveland, and during the question and answer period, it was in person. A woman raised her hand and she said, I'm really trying to have these conversations with my mother, and she won't listen. She tells me she doesn't want to talk about it. She's private, and I don't know what to do. What should I do? And happily, I remained professional, and I said, try again, explain to her this is causing you a lot of anxiety. Tell her how important it is for her to do this for you rather than for herself. And I continued to give advice, and she kept saying, I've tried that, it doesn't work. Finally, the woman next to her, who was older, raised her hand and said, well, I'm the mother. And it's true, I never wanted to have the conversations, and she dragged me to this program. But now that I've heard the story of the fire, I'm going to sit down with her and have those conversations. So I hope that you have found the talk useful. In the midst of crisis, it's really difficult to make good decisions if you don't know anything about the challenges that you are facing. And I hope you also find the book useful. I know you have an opportunity to get a signed copy through the website. If you want to recommend it to others, it's also available on Amazon. You can just search for it. And I will now be glad to take some questions.
Thank
So
you
why
so
don't I
much,
stop
Sharona.
sharing?
So if you feel comfortable putting the question, you can either put your question in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, just unmute yourself. Everybody's muted right now. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. Do we have any questions?
Sharona,
Yes.
I have no question. You were so thorough and so exacting and so to the point that I have no question. But I want to thank you. You were wonderful. You answered so many of our questions, and thank you.
Thanks so much, Elaine. That was very kind. And I see a comment from Sharon. Thank you as well.
Hello, this is June. I didn't get the part which you said. I am just in the process of trying to get a trust established. What did you say about the trust? Is that something that's not advised at this time, or?
Well, you should talk to a lawyer. There are circumstances where it is advisable. For example, if you have a child who is disabled and you want to make sure they get money not in a lump sum, but rather throughout their lives, or you need special arrangements, trust makes a lot of sense. But it used to sort of be a knee-jerk reaction. If you had several $100,000, they used to say, oh, go get a trust. But now there aren't the same tax advantages, and going through probate is not that complicated for a lot of people. So you really need to talk to a trust and estates attorney or an elder law attorney about whether having a trust makes sense or whether it's actually going to complicate things for you instead. So you just need some good advice.
Okay, yes, I am seeing a lawyer, but there are some properties involved with some siblings. So I just wanted to make sure that, I have one son, and I was trying to make sure that everything was taken care of, because I'm 80 years old, so.
Well, that's great. Yeah, as long as you're getting good advice from an attorney who understands your circumstances, you're in good shape.
Okay, thank you.
Helene, I saw your hand up. Helene?
Yes, I actually just put it in the chat.
Okay. Oh, my plan, since I have no children. Yeah, so my plan is to try not to be too anxious. I do have 3 younger sisters. I'm fortunate that I'm the oldest. So they're part of the plan, though they keep telling me that I exercise a lot more than they do, and they're not sure they're actually going to outlive me. So I have to get them to start eating better and exercise. And then, you know, just have my documents in order, make sure I have friends, make sure that when my husband and I are not feeling safe in the home, that we move to somewhere safer, to a senior community or a continuing care retirement community. That is super important. A lot of people do not make that decision when they should. That I will be motivated to stop driving when it's appropriate to stop driving, because I won't have children who are going to argue with me about that. So I just have to be more aware and more educated and more willing to make difficult decisions, because other people may not pressure me to make those decisions. So I've seen some things flashing in the chat. Let me see. Solo agers, this is from Gladys. Yes, so as Gladys points out, you can, if you don't have people who, you know, naturally can accompany you to appointments, there are professionals who can do it. You should probably hook up with a geriatric care manager that can help you manage your care and find good providers and maybe even accompany you. So that is why I have a chapter on service providers such as daily money managers, geriatric care managers, relocation experts that can be extremely helpful in helping you downsize and make that move to a senior community. And again, if you don't have a natural support system, it's really important to hire those kind of people to help you. So that's another part of my plan. Let's see if I see anything else.
I have a question, Sharona. This is Esther.
Hi, Esther.
Are there professional people who will act as a power of attorney?
Yeah, some of them hesitate, but you should talk to an attorney and ask about it. There may be social workers who will do it. Jewish family services, some of the Jewish service providers will have people. And so, yes, that can happen. If you need a guardian, a court-appointed guardian, there definitely are professionals who will act as guardians. But if a court is not going to be involved, you're a little bit more on your own. So you have to talk to attorneys, social workers, Jewish family services, and try to find somebody like that.
Thank you.
Also, talking to clergy, to a rabbi or whoever, that is often helpful because they can help you find people in the community, either who can drive you or help you around the house, or maybe even take you to appointments or be a power of attorney. So talking to clergy, if you have somebody you're close to, is also a good thing to do. Anybody else?
Other questions?
I think somebody named Dejanest, are you trying to speak? We can't hear you.
If you can't, if your audio is not working, maybe try to put the question into the chat. Do we have any other questions?
We'll just wait for that one.
Okay. Right, so maybe in the meantime, we're still waiting, but in the meantime, I'll just, was there a question?
Oh, okay.
Oh, there we go.
Yes. So transfer payment on death it's forms that you fill out, again, at the right place, the Bureau of Motor Vehicles for your car, the bank for your bank accounts, your financial advisor, if you have one, can help you doing that with investments. You can have that on the deed to your house so that your assets go directly to the person you name and don't have to go through probate, don't have to go to a judge. So I have done this, and I have designated different things to my husband, to my sisters. And so I am assured that there won't have to be a complicated probate process for those assets. They will go directly to the person I name, just like with your pension funds, right? You name beneficiaries and then the money goes directly to them. And so this is the same idea. I think, did something pop up? Okay.
I think someone just said this is very helpful.
Good.
And thank you for arranging it. So, do we have any last questions? If not, I'm just going to put on the screen information here. Hopefully everybody can see this. So I just want to say thank you again, Sharona, for a really great program. This was so much information and such important information, and I know I got a lot out of it, and I hope everybody else did as well. And I just want to say again that if you'd like to purchase a signed copy, it is not too late. Just go to our website, for all the addresses on the screen, or you can contact me directly. I'm happy to order it for you. And save the date for our upcoming author series programs. We have 2 scheduled. March 14th, we are having a presentation by Peggy Sullivan. Her book is Happiness is Your Responsibility. And May 2nd will be Galit Atlas, who will talk about her book, Emotional Inheritance. So watch your email for registration information for those 2 programs. Thank you again, Sharona. If there are no more questions, I'm just going to end here. And thank everybody for attending, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks so much. It was my pleasure.